In today's video, we will hear about the story of Amber, who was killed on the street of London. But before going into detail, subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more recent stories. The streets of London were eerily quiet that evening. The rain drizzled down, turning the city's asphalt into a slick, shimmering mirror. Amber, a young woman in her mid-20s, was finishing her shift at a late-night diner near King's Cross. It had been another long, exhausting day. She was used to it by now. Working 2 jobs to make ends meet was a part of life. But tonight felt different. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled as she buttoned up her coat and stepped out into the damp, foggy night. Her worn-out shoes splashed against the puddles as she crossed the street toward the bus stop. The dim streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that danced on the wet pavement. Amber glanced over her shoulder, feeling uneasy. It wasn't a good part of town, but she had walked this route countless times without incident. Still, there was a tension in the air that she couldn't shake off. The sound of footsteps echoed behind her. She froze for a moment, her pulse quickening. Slowly, she turned her head, scanning the empty street. No one was there. Amber swallowed the lump in her throat and kept walking, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling of being watched. As she rounded the corner onto a quieter road, the footsteps returned, louder and more deliberate this time. Her heart pounded in her chest. She quickened her pace, trying to stay calm, but the footsteps matched her speed. Panic surged through her veins. She wasn't imagining it. Someone was following her. Amber's eyes darted around, searching for a place to hide or someone to call out to, but the street was deserted. The bus stop was still a block away, too far to feel safe. Without thinking, she broke into a run. The footsteps behind her quickened. Amber's breath came in short gasps as she sprinted down the narrow street, her feet slipping on the wet pavement. The alleyways that crisscrossed the road were dark and foreboding, offering no refuge. She could feel her pursuer gaining on her, the distance between them shrinking with every step. Then, out of nowhere, a hand grabbed her arm, yanking her into a shadowy alley. She screamed, but the sound was muffled by a gloved hand clamped over her mouth. Her body thrashed instinctively, trying to break free, but her attacker was strong, too strong. The figure loomed over her, their face hidden beneath a hood, their eyes cold and unfeeling. "Stop struggling!" the voice hissed, low and threatening. Amber's heart raced as her mind spun, trying to make sense of the situation. She had heard stories about muggings and attacks in the city, but never imagined it would happen to her. Her body froze as the attacker pressed her against the wall, a glint of metal catching her eye. A knife. "Please," she gasped, her voice trembling. "I don't have much money. Just take it." The attacker said nothing, their hand tightening around her arm. With a swift movement, they ripped her purse from her shoulder, sending its contents spilling onto the ground. Amber's hands shook as she watched helplessly, the rain soaking through her clothes. She prayed it would end there, that they would take the money and leave her alone. But then the attacker did something she didn't expect. They leaned in closer, their breath hot against her ear. "This isn't about the money." Before she could scream, the knife plunged into her side. Pain exploded through her body, sharp and searing. Amber gasped, her vision blurring as she staggered backward, her hands clutching the wound. Blood oozed between her fingers, warm and sticky, mixing with the rain. Her legs buckled beneath her, and she collapsed onto the cold, wet pavement. The figure stood over her for a moment, their face still hidden in shadow, before turning and disappearing into the night without a word. Amber's world was fading, her heartbeat slowing as she lay there, alone in the rain-soaked alley. The distant sound of a police siren echoed through the fog, but she knew it wouldn't arrive in time. Her body shivered uncontrollably, the cold seeping into her bones as darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. She had fought so hard, worked so many long hours to build a future, to escape the hardships that had defined her life. But now, It was all slipping away. As her eyes fluttered closed, a single tear rolled down her cheek, blending with the rain. London continued to hum around her, indifferent to her tragedy, as her life ebbed away into the shadows of the night.